Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to, I'm assuming, a much-awaited book review, that of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This was my favorite book of 2015 that BookTube brought to me, and I promised you that I would have this review up because I had so much to talk about, and that's what this is, and we're gonna do it. But first, book haiku. Bun, I'm glad you're dead. Come on and die already! I'm such a monster. So one notable aspect of my reading experience with this book is this is the first book that I felt compelled to do status updates on Goodreads. Most of the time, I leave it blank until I finished a book, just so that I know when I started it and when I finished it, but I don't feel the need to share my thoughts and feelings as I go. But with this, I needed to. So I'm going to read you some of those status updates. There's not very many, so don't panic. And they're also not spoilerific, which is good. When I was on page 76, I wrote, I'm really glad Bunny will be dead soonish. And then on page 192, I said, my hands are sweaty, I've been sucked in. Also, were I like any of the characters, I'd be most like Henry, judge at will. Page 309, I said, on to book 2, not sure where the timeline is going to pick up at. Page 364, I said, I feel like I just killed someone. Come on, anxiety, it's only a story. And then finally, on page 424, I said, I still feel like I'm waiting to get in trouble. So apart from this book being the first one, I felt the desire to do status updates on Goodreads. This is one of the only books that I can remember that made me feel like the characters in the books, where I had an actual physical response to this book. Now, I'm not talking like fluttery feelings during kissing scenes or sexy times or whatever. Like, I'm talking like literally my palms are sweating. Literally, I felt like I had done something wrong and I thought I was going to be taken in by the police any minute. For me, that was a wonderful experience, as anxiety-ridden as it is, because I am not a really immersive reader. I don't often get sucked into worlds like I hear people talk about, and I feel like that's a reading experience that I just, I'm sad not to be able to participate in, but this gave me a glimpse as to what that might feel like, so it was very refreshing. My haiku wasn't a spoiler. Bunny dies. You learn that in the prologue, and so I wanted to talk about the prologue. I found the prologue helpful in the fact that the first 70 pages were a huge slog for me. The first lecture you had to sit through with Julian, I found myself wanting to put it down. But this was a book club read, so I couldn't do that. I had to keep reading. So the prologue I liked in the fact that it promised, just hang on, there'll be action to come. Just keep going, keep going. I don't think if the prologue had not been there, I would have been as excited to read this. However, I also was really impatient then. Maybe if the prologue hadn't been there, I would have been more patient with the first 70 pages and not so chomping at the bit to get into the action. Who knows? I also think the prologue allowed you to hate Bunny more. So in the first, 50 pages or so, you get to know Bunny as a character, and he is just horrible. He's sexist, he's homophobic, he's religious in the most ignorant way. He's just not a good dude. I would not want to hang out with him. And so knowing he dies kind of lets you feed that hatred toward him a little bit more, versus if you didn't know he was going to die and you're just like, oh, here's an insufferable character. All right, fine. So I think that the prologue also kind of let you feed those fires of animosity and even hatred, like violent hatred toward Bunny. And I'm assuming that's what Donna Tartt's aim was, so it was very effective. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was Richard as a narrator, and then the morality of the characters. So when I first started reading this, Richard's our POV character. He's the point of view character, and so I identified with him, and the fact that he originally came from California was also a bonus. That's where I'm originally from. But at the beginning of the novel, I identified with Richard. He was an outsider. He was looking in on this group of close-knit friends who were taking ancient Greek classes with this kind of controlling professor, and I kept thinking, maybe I would do that in my position, but then as the narrative went on, and no spoilers, I came to realize that no, Richard very much kind of fits in with them, and he's not nearly as innocent or moral as I originally thought he was. And so that was a really interesting turn of events because, he's like Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, from what I've read of that trilogy, where this is your guide into this world you don't understand. And you come to trust that guide real quickly because you have no other resource to understanding this new world. However, in this, you realize maybe you shouldn't be listening to that guide because Richard, man, I don't know about him. Not the rest of this video, but the rest of my discussion on the secret history is going to be a bit spoilery, but please stick around to when the spoiler fez is no longer on my head because I'll wrap up my thoughts and feelings and also give you a glorious send-off. So if you haven't read the secret history, please skip forward or mute, wait until you don't see the spoiler fez anymore, and if you have read the secret history, please keep watching. Okay, spoiler fez in place. So I want to talk about the characters because I did this with my personal book club, but some of the members didn't read it, didn't finish it in time, so we didn't get to talk about a lot of the spoilery stuff. And there were a couple things that I really needed to get out of my system. So I don't know how I feel about Francis and the depiction of homosexuality through him. My gut feeling is that it was done very true to form and not in a judging sort of way. And I like his interactions with Charles and the fact that he and Charles had a sexual, if not romantic, relationship, but Charles always was drunk when they were having sex and pretended not to remember what had happened the night before the morning after. That's also in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, at least in the movie. I haven't read the book. So I thought, as sad as that was, probably true to form. Then his character goes through some other things. There's that kissing scene with Richard, and where Richard says, like, I'm not attracted to you, sorry. And Francis says, well, I'm not attracted to you either, really, but you're there. So do you want to make out? It's just a little bit like, okay, I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess if they're friends and he's just seeing if Richard's okay with it, then, if they were consensual parties, that'd be totally fine. But it was a little, I don't know about that one. And then also at the end, when Francis marries Priscilla to retain his family money because they wouldn't accept him as being a homosexual. That would be like something really prevalent in books like from the 50s or whatever. And I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be written in 1992. Like it's supposed to take place in 1992. Could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could never pin down the time period in this. 1992? Well, maybe. I just don't know. And I really liked the fact that a gay character was incorporated in this, but then the depiction of him, I'm thick. I'm really bad at deciding if something was a good depiction or a poor depiction, so please let me know your thoughts down below, because I just don't know. The way my mind works, I can look at a problem and think about it enough to where the problem just no longer exists. I'm really bad in real world stuff and understanding things like prejudice and all the isms. So help me out. Another thing that I had a big problem with as far as the characters go was Charles and Camilla's incest. Why was it there? What? Okay, so I've got in my notes here, I have that Bunny's made all these snide, horrible comments to Camilla about, doing it with Charles. And then Richard witnesses them have like a deep kiss, but Charles is drunk at the time, and I don't know. But then Camilla doesn't ever tell Richard, no, we're not sleeping together. And she passes it off as just kind of like a twin perk, which incest isn't one of those taboos that really, really upsets my, sensibilities. But I don't think that all twins think that incest is just like a perk. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that most twins are just like, oh, this is convenient. But it just was kind of dropped after that. And I have no idea what was going on. Like, why was that in there? Well, I don't know. Please, someone talk to me about it because I don't know. It really bothered me. Why? Why was it in there? Why? Now I want to talk to you about Julian because Julian's really interesting and also awful. And the main thing that I wanted to say about Julian had to do with his responsibility with the crimes committed by the group he was mentoring. My friends and I discussed this, and while he is probably not criminally responsible, like he couldn't go to jail for anything, if he had any sense of morality at all, which I don't think he does, he is certainly morally responsible for the actions that the group took. Because the actions that the group took in the 2 murders that they were involved in all had to do with, like, not necessarily pleasing Julian, but living up to his expectations, impressing him, going above and beyond in their studies, which were already, boundless. And, Julian, like, he's the sort of teacher who it would probably be really wonderful and you could really idolize, but you need to make sure your students are grounded in reality and know the difference between right and wrong. And Julian, at least with Henry, I'm certain knew that Henry was amoral. Like he had his own set of morality, which didn't contribute with that of the rest of the world. But then again, Julian is probably a high-functioning sociopath and doesn't believe in the rules of the world either, so it was just a poop storm, And the events in this book happened. So thanks for that, Julian. You piece of poo. So that's all I have to say about Julian, is that he sucked and was a good character, but I love to hate him. And then I want to talk about Henry's suicide, which is the very last thing that happens in the past retelling of Richard's tale. Because Richard's telling you the tale in retrospect. I didn't see that coming. I also don't 100% understand why he did it. Probably because I'm not as smart as Henry, and therefore not as smart as Donna Tartt. But I don't get it. I didn't get it. And I really liked Henry. I pictured him as this weird, kind of psychotic Clark Kent, but I still liked him. And, and like I said at the beginning of my reading experience, that I identify with Henry. So I didn't want Henry to die because I didn't want me to die if I were one of those characters. That's all the notes I have for this is I didn't see that coming and I don't understand why he did it. So please educate me in the comments. I don't understand. This is one big review of me asking you for help understanding this book that I loved. Please tell me why I'm allowed to like this because there were so many problems in it, but I still loved it. So please give me the information that I need to justify my love for this book is pretty much what this video is. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is the final end of the book, where I came to the realization that Richard wasn't writing this from prison, because that's what I thought was going on. And the fact that I don't know how old they are, in their 30s, in their 40s, at the time Richard's retelling this, that they have completely gotten away with murder. Both murders. I thought that it was eerily anticlimactic, because with all of the anxiety that was happening toward the end of Richard's retelling, I felt certain that there was going to be a police standoff. They were going to have to go into jail. And so I was expecting all of that action to happen. And so when it kind of just fades out after the death of Henry, it was anticlimactic. But I think it was also very realistic because I really don't want to know, but I know enough to know that there are so many unsolved murders and disappearances. It's insane. I don't understand. If I could have a superpower, one of my choices would be to be able to find lost things and to be able to find missing people. And even if I couldn't find their body because they had long decayed into the world, into the ground or whatever, that I would be able to just understand what happened to this person. I am flabbergasted that people can disappear without a trace, but it happens every day. Okay. Blathering done, but I really liked how at the end they weren't in jail, but they're still haunted and unsatisfied human beings. It was they were in the prime of their life before the first murder, and then everything's been downhill from there. And if there is such a thing as hell on earth, I'm pretty sure that's one of the options. Is just you have no justification to be miserable with your life, and yet you are. And so I think that was kind of a fitting punishment. But do I wish that they were in jail? I don't know, because I kind of grew to like them a little bit when I was reading this, or at least I grew to identify with them. I grew to believe that I was part of the pack enough to where I thought I was going to be put in jail in real life. I was satisfied with the ending, but it definitely wasn't where I thought it was going to go. So I think Donna Tartt earned some props. Welcome back, all those who did not want to be spoiled. Okay, so my final thoughts on this book are that I loved it so much. I found the ethereal quality of the quint, the quint that Richard joins up with Bunny, Henry, Francis, Charles, and Camilla to be just really great. The characters were interesting, if not problematic. Julian was also a character I love to hate. Richard was also a character that was so much fun to second guess and reevaluate. This was a book that didn't do very much, but all of this matters. You know, that I was never bored after the first 70 pages. After I got invested with this book, I was never bored with what I was reading, even if Richard was just yet again oversleeping and on drugs in his room. So there you go. Those are all of my thoughts of The Secret History. I recommend that you pick this up at like university age if possible. I don't think that much older people would really connect with this. So if you are, in university or just out of university, I'm 25 and I think I read this at precisely the right time. I don't know if I waited a couple years, if this would have been as impactful of a read for me. And I think the impactfulness of the read is like its prime quality. So please, if you are at all interested, pick up The Secret History. And if you've already read it, please talk to me in the comments. I am so lost without the input of others, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it with my friends, and I would really love to talk about it with you. If you're going to talk to me about spoilers, please just do like 6 enters or whatever, and let me know that there are spoilers below your comment, just so that anyone looking through the comments isn't spoiled in like the first line of your comment. Can I say comment one more time? I will comment. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below the most immersive read you've ever read. I'm sure a lot of people will say Harry Potter, but tell me anyway, because I would love to hear more about you and start a conversation with you down below. Thank you for watching yet again, and until next time, continue to be lovely.